an attendance link in the Computer Club's text channel. I hope it worked. Double check. Yep, looks like it worked. So yeah, just fill it out so we can get you counted that you were here. It's just a thing we have to do Senate-wise.
It says the form is only viewable by users in the owner's organization.
Are you signed in with your DSU email?
I am not. I didn't know we had Google accounts under the DSU emails.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
Sign into Google with your DSU email, and then it should work.
Because you should be able to be signed in twice. Once with your... You can be signed in with your DSU and with a regular one. So try that, and if it still doesn't work, let me know in the text channel, and I'll work it out on my end. So, all right, I will turn the floor over to Shane then.
All right, thanks. Hello, we're going to be talking about command line usage for noobs, which you may or may not be. First things first, if you want to ask any questions, you can go to the newly set up and possibly secure questions.defsec.club. So I'll have that up. Or you can just say questions, that works too. You don't have to fill out the attendance link because apparently Rand was doing that. All right. So I use the word noob as like a friendly term. We're all noobs for some things, not noobs for others. And it's cool because you can learn new things, right? Because we're being wholesome. So if you're offended for being called a noob, don't be. The sky is blue because of something about refraction. That was the question. So what is the command line interface? And why do we want to use it? So number one reason is you don't have a choice. So get used to it. Other reasons for once you accept your inability to change to anything else is you have a lot of control over it. It's very capable, right? You can automate it to almost anything. And using it remotely, super easy, which we're going to see. This is my shell over here. You'll see it. Very nice, very aesthetic. So what is happening when we use the command line? I'm sure some of you guys have seen like hacker movies, or for the more experienced, open command line and on Windows or even Linux. It's how we interact with the operating system, which we will refer to as Linux, even though that may not be technically correct. And learning how to use it well pays dividends because you use it all the time, right? For almost anything, for every competition, you're going to be using it almost the entire time. Unless you're on Windows, in which case you should learn how to use PowerShell, and you'd still be using it. So what is Linux? Well, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, so we're not going to talk about the Linux part of it. Right now, we're just going to focus on the command line and what we can do to the part you can see, because focusing on that makes things a lot simpler. So you're all familiar with this interface on the left, hopefully. It's just folders and files. You can interact with these ideas, right? Files store data, folders store other files in the same ways you normally do. So on the left, if you want to read a file, you might double click it, which would spawn notepad.exe. On the right side, you might type cat or cd, which we'll talk about later. So for a moment, imagine that you're working on the UNIVAC or a super old computer in the 1950s, and you have a teletype with like 10 lines of scroll back, and you need to figure out how to do everything. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to kind of think, like how did these things come to be? It doesn't actually have any merit in like actually learning things, but it's cool. What if you wanted to list something? What if you wanted to list something in a different way? What if you wanted to print somewhere else? That doesn't really make any sense because we don't know. We might not know, what listing files is, but it's cool. It's a cool problem. So here's what a command looks like. This is from explainshell.com. So if you want to have more detail on a command, you can pump it into that website, and it'll give you something like this. The first argument is the command. So that's like when they say ls a directory, list a directory, that's the command you're running. We talk more about commands later. These are the flags. So these modify how ls operates. So if you're ls-l, that might do something different. For example, list format as opposed to the normal format. And this is an argument. This is passed into the command to be what it operates on. So if you want to list a different directory, you can pass it there. Yeah. Oh no, I'm receiving breaking news. It appears that your Linux computer, which you own, has been hacked, and it's in the state of Kentucky. This is really unfortunate. I'm sorry to break this news to you. And we're gonna have to figure out who did it. You guys ready? First, let's talk about what SSH actually does. So you run commands remotely. This might be tough to understand if you don't know what commands or remotely means, but essentially you type things on your computer and they go to the other computer through a magic crypto tunnel, which you can transfer files, you can transfer anything, usually input streams or text. So what is SSH doing? It's the one thing you should take away is SSH lets you run commands remotely. It's a remote shell, SSH, secure shell. And commands can do anything you can do from the GUI, usually, right? So we're just going to use a computer in a different way over the internet. Here's a cool GIF I made, which shows how SSH kind of works. So you type in your terminal, it goes over the magic crypto tunnel to the other remote PC. Albeit on the remote PC, they don't see what's happening. Like it doesn't pop up like this, it runs in the background, but this is essentially what's happening. All right. So let's open a terminal. Let's actually do some stuff. On Windows, they added the SSH command, so you can do it just like you would on Linux. If you don't know how to open the command prompt on on Windows, couldn't show you because I'm running Linux. But you press Windows R, or you type run, or you can just type CMD. Just open the big black box. It's harder to do this virtually because I can't see who's struggling to open it, but I'll assume you guys are doing okay. Welcome to the shell. So we are going to SSH into the server, so SSH. Great. We need a few more arguments to tell it exactly where to go. So here is how you SSH. The syntax of the command is you SSH user at domain or IP address. So this is where you're going. This is who you're signing in as. And then this is the port. So we're not going to talk about ports, what they are. It's just like different spots on a computer to connect to, if you want to think about it like that. So to SSH to the lab computer, you'd SSH level 1 at defsec.club port 4012, and then ask you for a password, which is password bang. So I'll be typing that. So this is what you should be typing in your terminal. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Great, SSH. You'll be using this a lot in your classes too. So it asks me for a password. It's password 1 exclamation mark or password 1 bang. It looks like this. That's the password. And then once you're in, you see, oh no, we've been hacked. And they left a very classy skull ASCII art. So if we read the message, it says, good luck. You'll never find the evidence in / secret files. Okay, so that looks like a folder of some sort, but / what does it mean? Who knows? I assume most of you guys are currently in the machine. Again, if you needed the syntax, that's the command put together. Again, it's kind of hard to tell pacing. Are you guys doing all right? I'll take the complete silence as a yes. So we're in the box. Now what do we do? How do we interact with these words on the screen? So we have the cool ASCII art. We're going to need to use 2 commands, which are pretty much your bread and butter for navigating and seeing where you are. The first one is ls, listing. The second one is cd, changing directories. So you can remember it as list and change directory. Some are harder to remember. These are pretty easy. So we're going to have to change directory into secret files from where we currently are, which is home. I am doing all right, buddy. Thank you for the questions. So if we type ls and then press enter, we see secret files. That's a folder. So if we change directory into secret files and press enter, it now shows us where we are on the prompt. And if we type ls again, we see there are new files in this folder. So hopefully you guys got that. We were in the home, which is represented by this tilde. We changed directory into secret files, and then we typed ls again. So we're listing files in the secret files folder in the home. So that's cool. Now we can ls all day. It's like, yay, what a wonderful time to be alive. So what next? Okay, I'm going to talk a bit about directories, because if you know how this works from the beginning, it's much easier. So tilde is your home directory. That's pretty much that. So if you go over here and you'd like cd tilde, that'll bring you to your home directory, represented by this little tilde. Or if you just do cd by default, that brings you to your home directory implicitly. So if I do like cd tilde, which is my home, / secret files, I'll cd into the secret files in my home. So a lot of ways to reference the same path. So if something starts with a /, that means it's at the root of the file system or the highest file. This is like the C drive on Windows, whereas there's nothing can be above it. This is where all the files start. So things that start with a root, the root of the file system, not to be confused with the root user, which is completely different, are absolute paths. A question, what is a home directory? That's when you SSH to a server, or when you log in, you get dropped into the home directory. That's like your users folder, right? So when you log into a Windows machine, you have your desktop, you have your music, you have your pictures. The home folder is just like that. So if I pwd print work directory, I see I'm in /home/level1. That's where you get dropped. This is where you live, pretty much. So that's an absolute path. A lot of people do this, where they're like, cat etc password. This is a file of all the users on the system. And they're like, no file directory, what? It's because they didn't start it with a / at the front. Because it's not, it's not in your current directory. That's what's implicitly implied is current directory etc password when you type it without the /. But what you really want is root of the directory etc password. It's okay if that doesn't make sense. We'll talk about it a little more. So / current directory. You saw right here with the hacker. Oh, my input. The hacker said it's in / secret files. That means current directory secret files. That may seem kind of worthless because obviously it implies that I'm in my current directory when I do a command, but it becomes useful later. .. / is how you go a directory up. So if you ls .. or you ls .. or you cd .. you go up one, or above. This is like pressing the back button in Windows. So if I cd secret files, then cd .. I go back up. So a lot of ways to do the same thing. Does that make sense to people? I will take that as a yes. Thank you. So these are relative directories. Handy to know. Here's a cool drawing I made at the lowest possible resolution. This is the root. The 3 folders that are important to know: bin, home, and etc. Etc is where your configs normally live. It can be think of like etc. Bin stands for binaries or programs, and that's where the programs live, like ls. And home is where the user's home lives. So like home user 1, or in our case level 1, or home user 2. If you were home user 2, or if you were user 2 and you logged in, you would be dropped here. This is tilde for user 2, and then .. / from here would be back up to the home folder. So it's kind of hard to understand when you don't play around with it, so I encourage you guys to do just that. Directories Quiz. Where is etc ssh sshd config? This is kind of if you want to respond, just go for it. Well, that's kind of an ambiguous question, but the correct answer is it's in the root directory because it starts with a / and not a dot or nothing. And what is probably its purpose? Since SE is for configurations, it probably configures SSH. Just a guess. So let's say I'm in /bin. Is etc password .. / etc password a valid path? I go up one and then into etc password. Normally this wouldn't work, but if .. / is equivalent to root, then it just might be. Let's just out because words are hard. I'm in bin and I cat .. / etc password. So I go up one and it didn't work. What? Wait, that should have worked.
That should have worked, right?
Yeah, that should have worked. So if I cd .. now I'm in the root directory, so then I can cat etc password. Okay, well, mysteries don't stop. Let's say I'm in the home folder. How would I get to etc password with a relative path? Well, let's try it. I'm in my home folder. Well, now I don't know if this is going to work because it's haunted. Oh, okay, that worked. So I need to go up twice because I'm in home level 1, so I need to go up one, up another one, and then down into etc password. Again, etc password is all the users on the system, and it's publicly readable, which is why it's a good example. So here's the root user. Here's the level 1, here's level 2, which we'll get to. Hopefully that makes sense. How do we read files? We read files with cat. Oh, did I try to ls? I didn't think I did. Yeah, I didn't. Plus, it would still show me. That was a question. Someone said you tried to ls instead of cat, which was apparently not
That's
the
really
case.
weird.
Yeah, that's who knows. So we want to read a file on the system. Cat stands for concatenate, and it's used to read things. So let's try it out. Here's the secret files directory, which the hacker held secrets. We ls, we see cool file and some long folder name. Let's cat cool file. So this is an argument to the program or command cat. It appears that we are up a formidable opponent who is very cultured. Okay. So we read a file. So this file contains this text. Like if you open this in notepad.txt, it would just be notepad window with this text. Same concept. So cat, really useful. Read a lot of things, files, let's get it. Echo, if you want to print something, use echo. It's like you're talking to yourself, like an echo. Useful? Maybe later. Right now, not so much. That's all you guys logged into this, by the way. Okay.
Shane, I figured out the problem.
Did you?
Yes, bin is a symlink to user bin.
Oh, that's really cool, actually. Okay, well, quick intro to symlinks. It's like a shortcut. Thank you. Yeah, so I was actually one far down. So there we go. Thank you. So yeah, I was actually in a fake folder in a shortcut. So that's why the path didn't work, because I was actually in a different path. Okay, so echo print things. Holy command, let's get it. Tab autocomplete. So you saw that long folder. No one actually wants to type that. And in fact, I don't want to type anything. If the terminal could read my mind, I would let it. But it can't. So we are stuck with typing. So you can use tab to autocomplete what the terminal thinks you want to do. So long file names, some commands have autocomplete built into it, but it's very intuitive and I suggest you use it, because if you don't, that's wasted keystrokes. So we use ls list to see these files. CD, you can just type G, or the shortest unique substring, which is a fancy way of saying the amount of characters that make a path unique, which isn't much better. But essentially, if I had go and like go A, I would have to type the dash for it to autocomplete, because it doesn't know which one you want otherwise. But in this case, I can just type G, because there's only one thing starting with G, and then press tab, and it autocompletes the whole thing. Very cool. All right, we foiled the secret hacker's plans for now, but let's see what we can do. So you can hide a file or folder if you add a dot in the front. This means it's not normally shown to the end user, whether you're using a graphical user interface or not. So one of these flags will show hidden files. So this is like the question before. If you wanted to invent listing, what if you want to show hidden files sometimes and some not? You can use a flag or a tag or a modifier, which is, this case is -A for all. And if we ls -A, we see that there's a hidden file called now you don't. Okay, well, let's finish out this sick level. If we cat now you don't, we see the password for level 2 is Cyber Warrior 2. We're getting further. We're digging into the trenches of this forensics case. So we're going to log back into the server as level 2, the user. So we're going to go back. You need to kill the connection and then re-SSH as level 2 on the same port. I'll give you guys a second. You can quit by pressing Control D. Oh yeah, I probably should have talked about that. You can press Control D to send a signal term, which means die, pretty much. So if I was SSH back into level 1, I could press Control C to sig int or go to the next line. This is useful when you're typing something, or when you're typing something that never ends and you want to kill it. You can press Control C, and it changed the color of my prompt. So Control C is interrupt. Control D is kill. So once bash heard, or once it caught my signal D, Control D, then it typed the logout for me and killed it. So hopefully that makes sense. You can also just type exit, or you can close the window. whatever makes you happy. So we're going to SSH level 2. The password was Cyber Warrior 2. All right, I'm going to give you guys a second if anyone's still SSHing. Assuming you guys are good, we're going to read this hacker's note. Huh, I didn't think you'd get this far. Prepare to be foiled by my elite tricks. Only a fledgling terminal wizard would be able to bypass these measures. Well, let's see if we can do it, guys. I believe in us. So a level 1 summary, we learned how to SSH, how to list files, how to change directory, the basic structure of the Linux file system, how to read things, how to make your arthritis happen later in life, and how to read hidden files and folders. You just add a dot in the front. Does anyone have any questions on that part? You can still use the questions link if you do. And yeah, someone has already trifled my lab and solved it, so good for you. Okay, level 2, let's get it. So we've learned how to cd into directories and how to read files, but how do we make files? Number 1, you can use touch. Pretty useless, and no one really uses this. The real use for this is you can modify timestamps with it. Most people just use an editor. You can also redirect output from echo to a file name using this caret. This means take all the output from echo hello, which will echo hello, and put in the file name. So you could probably predict what will happen. I need to be in my sandbox. You shouldn't be able to edit anything outside of sandbox. So if I echo hello to file, it says hello. Excellent world. And yeah, we're all sharing the same sandbox, so try to not be hooligans. Probably people's favorite way is to use nano. When you're cool, you can use vim, which is an excellent text editor. But for now, we will use nano. It's very simple, and instructions are at the bottom. So nano, my cool file. This will open a text editor. Ignore that problems with history file. We don't have to worry about that. So you see this is GNU nano, and that's my file name. I want to write something. Great, there's my essay. And at the bottom, you see it says Control X for exit. This means control. So if you press Control X, it'll be like, do you want to save it? I'm like, absolutely. And then you can press Enter, or you can change the file name if you want. Save file in a different name? Sure, why not? So now we can see my cool file too. And here it is. So again, you can just type nano file, whatever file name you want. Control X to save, or Control X to exit, and then you can press Y and then Enter. So you're probably going to be using that a lot for your computer science classes if you haven't already. So those are the 3 main ways to make a file. So how do we want to make a directory? So just a little bit of pedantry. You can use the word directory instead of folder, because folder more means like a GUI icon of like a folder you click, and directories is like the file system object. Doesn't really matter, but you can make a directory with mkdir. Oh, someone RM'd everything. Okay. So if I cd into the folder I just made, it is a folder. It is a directory. I can make files in it. And everything's great. You see if you touch a file, it makes an empty file. Great. Everything works as expected. So yeah, make a directory. Great. Moving, copying, and renaming. Normally, you right click, you copy and paste, you cut and paste, you use keyboard shortcuts. Now we have 2-letter commands. MV for move, makes sense. CP for copy, makes sense. So move takes the original and deletes it, or rather frees it, like cut and paste. Copy makes a copy, like copy and paste. So here's what that might look like. Oh, Vim is goated. Interesting. You can cp file to file 2, and now you see file was empty, and file 2 will also be empty. Oops. File 2 is also empty. If we want to copy with something with content, we can use my excellent essay and copy it to SAV2. Now we cut SAV2. It contains the same text. Yep. So renaming is kind of confusing. Like I move this to the same directory with a different name. It makes sense because you're just taking this file and putting it at a different location. But it can be used to rename things. So if I want a file to be called cool file, now there is no file, and instead I have cool file, which contains the same thing, nothing. So hopefully that makes sense. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at people who are unfamiliar with these commands. Move, CP, copy. Here's a cool gif of me doing that. I moved rad file to cool file, renaming it, and then I moved that into a folder, right? So you can move it to different locations. So if I wanted to move cool file to, okay, if I wanted to move cool file to the directory above, I would do ... or you could do ... / same thing. And then if I go there, I see it is now in the top level directory. I will not enter, do not enter, I respect. So if you want to remove things, you use rm for remove. Makes sense, right? Most of these are just like, if you removed vowels, that's the command. So let's say I wanted to remove milk before cereal. It's gone. I destroyed it. If you want to do technically, you're not actually deleting it, right? It's still there on disk. Like people can still recover it. It just removes the operating system's knowledge of it, pretty much. Again, doesn't really matter. If I wanted to remove a directory, I could do rmr, which stands for recursive. Alternatively, I could rmdir, like kecw, and that will delete it. I won't run this. Sus. So that's removing. It's pretty simple. You'll probably see this a lot. If you do that, it won't work, but you shouldn't try it because it's rude. This basically will delete your operating system. So don't do this. If you see someone being like, hey, I cured my virus by doing this, don't believe them. Well, technically it will clean any infection, but you'll also lose everything else. So shortcuts, excellent. If you want to be cyber, shortcuts are a necessity. So here's some quick GNOME calculator math. If you save 5 seconds of time on a command every minute, in a 6-hour competition, you'll save 30 minutes. That is not insignificant. So learn the shortcuts, use them all the time. If you're not using a shortcut, find a shortcut, because probably one exists. So for example, I just Control-L'd, which was clear the screen. You could do Control-L instead of typing clear. Same thing, just makes all the text go away. Or, save time, live better, Control-L. My favorite 2 commands are Control-P and Control-N, which stand for previous and next. So those aren't, so previous, I press P and then to go backwards in my history, and I press N to go forward. You can also use the arrow keys. It would help if I didn't have all this spam. So you can use arrow keys to go up, back in your history, and down. So often you'll type a command and you'll be like, oh no, I typed something wrong. So instead you can press Control P instead of retyping the whole command. If you want to go to the start of the line, you do Control A. End of the line, Control E. These are very useful. So like if I press Control P and then I go to the start of the line, then I delete. Easy. Instead of going like, oh, my arthritis is developing, So I don't want to catch anyone like typing a long command and then retyping it because you misspelled one thing. There are a ton of like really niche tricks, like if you want to reference like the last argument of the 10th command ago. But these are really the basics. Control P, Control N, Control A, Control A, and Control E. So please remember these. Please use them. It's worth noting that these are Emacs bindings. You're using Emacs mode when you use a terminal normally. But that, again, is irrelevant for now.
I have a question.
Yes. How
come you can't just use home and end to save on the arthritis instead of 2 keys, you just use 1?
I'm unfamiliar with the shortcuts, but I also have a 60%, so I'm not trying to press 2 buttons. Well, 3 buttons.
Fair enough.
But yeah, there's a ton of tricks. You should look them up and see which ones work best for you. So here's my gif again. Very cool. In this top one, you see I'm a Neanderthal, and I'm retyping the whole thing, and it takes probably 6 millennia. I didn't time it, but it's somewhere close. And this bottom one, I use Control P and then Control A to go to the front of the line to fix my typo, like I just showed. So, all right, so let's investigate this box some more. Let's get out of sandbox and go into real evidence. It seems there's a hacker log here. Okay, it seems to be a log of his activities. That's a lot of text. Like I'm still scrolling. I haven't found anything. You can't hear my scrolling, but I've been scrolling. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a pager. Pagers make it easier to look through a lot of text. So my favorite pager is less because it's built in and it's newer than more. So we type less and it looks like this. And it's like, oh, okay, so we start at the front, and then you can go up and down in it rather than just having it output to your terminal history. Well, I woke up and had some toast, got on my computer, and started looking at Epic Maymays. You can press the right and left arrow if the text is too large. So we can go down. You can press space to go 10 at a time. Oh, we found something. And then I wrote my first name down, Mucus. And I wrote my stuff in the secrets folder with my secret last name, starting with the text, my last name. Good to remember. Usually, elite hackers don't give us hints like this, so it's very nice. So we can hold space to go 10 at a time forever until we reach the end, and there we go. If you want to go to the top of the file, you can press small g. If you want to go to the end, you can press capital G or shift G. If you want to search for something, which is super useful, you have two choices. If you want to search down from where you currently are, you can type slash, and then you type what you want to search. So I typed /mucus, and it jumped me to the line where it had mucus. That's slash, so I want to search down. If I want to search up, I type question mark. So let's say I want to say toast. Press enter, and it searches up from where I currently am. If you know how to use Vim, you'll notice these binds are very similar. But for now, all you should remember is G, G, slash, and question mark. Oops. So oh yeah, okay. So another thing that you should know. I don't use it as much as I should, but it's very cool. So let's say I said cat hacker log, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of text. And I will literally get arthritis if I type hacker log again. So I can type less, and then I can type alt/period or alt space period. So the alt button and the dot. And that'll give me the last argument from the previous command. Excellent. You can keep pressing it if you want to keep going back up into the previous history's last command or last argument. So that's cool. It's a little more niche, but. And then Control R, something that didn't really fit nicely into the. Let's say I was searching, I typed a long command, and then I was doing a long day of work, catting Etsy password, and then I wanted to see that long command again. I can press Control R to search my bash history, and then I can start typing it, and it auto-completes it. So super useful. Control R. Control plus R. So trivia, less is named after more, which is an older pager. And if you are struggling to remember the pager name, you can think of it like you want to remember less text because there's too much. Okay, so Glob Expansion. Let's progress in this scenario. So it seems there's nothing here, but if we use our supervision goggles, we will see that there's actually a .secrets file, which was alluded to in the hacker log. So cd.secrets. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's a lot of files. We're going to have to trifle through all these files. And unless you want to use up your 8 billable hours looking through each file, we should probably use some sick tricks. So glob expansion or globbing is the shell's way of making things easier on you. So wildcard, you'll often see this as the wildcard character, or glob expansion essentially takes whenever you put it and expands it to all the files in the current directory. Or sometimes it'll do a context-based expansion. But this is very useful. Like imagine you had 40 billion files and you wanted to read them all for some reason. You could type cat star, and behind the scenes, the terminal would be like, okay, cat, 40 billion files that you don't want to type. Again, less typing means better. So let's try that. Oh no, it seems that each one of these files contained wrong. So I typed cat star and it went through all of these and read them. So let me read this one. Oh yeah, side note, if you want to copy and paste in the terminal, at least on Linux, you do Control-Shift-C. And if you want to paste, you do Control-Shift-V. It might be different on Windows, couldn't tell you. So yeah, all of these contain the word wrong, but apparently there's some secret in here. So we're going to have to filter this text and find stuff in it. So wildcard, if you want to read, here's a cool site I found, or you can just look up globbing. Pipes. So what we want to do is we want to take all this monstrous output from all these files saying wrong and pipe it into a find command. So find on Linux is called grep. It's called findstring.exe on Windows, and it stands for Global Regular Expression Print, which you do not need to remember. So pipes are interesting because they open up a lot of doors, right? You take the output of cat and put it into the input of grep, or another command, or any command. So since the universal interface of all these commands is text, you can do a lot of wacky things that you probably shouldn't be able to do. So in this case, we're reading all the files and then finding a string. Dupe. So we know the string we're looking for because the hacker was nice enough to leave us a hint. So it's going to be my last name. This was left in the hacker log. Oh, we did it. My last name is Liller. Ah, the hacker, Mucus Liller, local DefSec hero, has infiltrated our box. Luckily, we thwarted him with our amazing terminal skills. So yeah, we read everything, and then we found thing. You see it highlighted right here. You can turn that off if you. So cat star, pipe, into grep. If you grep for something that's not there, it'll output nothing, as expected. Another way you could have solved this is grep r, grep r, which is recursive. So if you did my last name like this, it would have also worked, and it would have shown you which file is in. That stands for recursive. Very useful. So it looks like we solved the mystery, but there's still a little bit more that I want to shove down your throat. Are there any questions on the first part of it? On us solving the secret mystery of Mucus Liller. Great. All right, so I'm going to throw a lot of words at you. So don't feel, overwhelmed. You can feel overwhelmed, but don't feel like you have to memorize everything or you have to understand everything I'm saying. If you do, cool. But if you don't, that's fine. Just try to absorb what you can. All right, so there are 3 pipes for a command. Standard input is pipe 0. Standard output, pipe 1. Standard error, pipe 2. That doesn't really mean anything, but stuff you type into a command is through pipe 0 or standard input. The normal output of a command is pipe 1, as you can see this cool diagram. So cat star, like all the files in that last example, were pipe 0 into grep. Then what grep found went into standard out. If grep had any errors, like permission denied, it would go out of this pipe, standard error. So these pipes, like everything else in Linux, are files. So you can see them if you want to go digging into the proc file system. Proc self, yeah, we're getting a little deep here, but proc is all the processes on the system, and proc self is the current process. So this should be my bash executable. So if we cd into fd, file descriptors, these are the currently open file descriptors for the process. You see it has 0, 1, and 2. Standard input, standard out, standard error. We'll see that these are actually all a sham, and they redirect to dev virtual terminal 14, but we're not going to talk about that. So 0, 1, and 2, standard error, standard in, standard out. Not in that order. Standard in, standard out, standard error. So you see right here, I echoed hello to 1, which outputs it because standard out. So here's a cool little jive. So let's say I wanted to find, which just by default lists all files recursively. And I didn't want the errors because I don't want to be reminded of status on the machine. If I want to filter out all errors, I can pipe the second pipe, which is standard error, to dev null, which is like a black hole. It just takes everything you throw it and throws it in the trash. So I hope that makes sense. That's usually that's the biggest use case for like standard error and knowing the pipe numbers. You can also filter out standard out if you don't want to see useful output. More power to you. Binaries, paths, and built-ins. So what really is ls? You type it, you see it, but what is it? Today we will answer that question. ls, cat, less, grep, pretty much everything. Everything in any of these folders is a binary, presumably. At least it should be. So let's check out user bin. So I could type any of these and then execute them. They're green because they're executable. That's the default color scheme. So let's say I want to type ln, which is link. It's like, hey, you used the command wrong. I don't want to see that error. It should pipe it to standard error. Haha, now I'm using it perfectly. So all of these are programs that do something, presumably, and they're all executables. So when you type something on the command line like ls, your computer searches this environmental variable. The $sign mean bash is referring to a variable, path is the name of the variable. This means everything that your computer is supposed to search for when you type a binary name. So we don't type bin ls, right? That would still work, but we like convenience. So we have this environmental variable to specify which paths we automatically search. So user bin, or bin, is what ls is in. So anything in bin, I can type without typing the full thing. So I want to type message is y. Great. Since it's in this folder, I can just type it without anything else. Same with less. If I want to see where it is, I can type which. So which less, it's in user bin less. So I'm piping this output to grep. Here are all the things that have less in the name in user bin. So that's how it works. These are just files you run on your system. So if I wanted to cd into bin, into user bin, and type /less, that would also work, because this means current directory less. Again, a bunch of different ways to do the same thing, some of which are more useful than others, but it's good to know. On the other hand, you won't find the cd binary, right? That would, which cd? It's gone. But I can type it. Explain that. Well, I can, because it's a bash built-in, or a built-in function to bash equals built-in. They're called built-ins. So this means when bash interprets your command, if it finds one of its built-in functions, it will instead handle the command itself rather than finding the binary on your system. Again, I know this is super overwhelming for people who are just coming into it, but just try to try to stick with me and just know that if you absorb half of this, then you're good. You're vibing. So cd is a built-in. It doesn't have a binary. Great. And that's pretty much all I have here are my level 1 summaries and level 2. We should have talked about how to create files, how to rename them, the wildcard glob expansion, less init shortcuts, more shortcuts, piping, and piping to a file, or redirecting, and then the 3 pipes. So do you guys have any questions or concerns? Do you want me to do anything on this box? You can just nuke the whole thing. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. No. So as you found, what does echo $$ do? It should echo the PID, yeah. So if there are a lot of here are all the environmental variables. I don't actually know where $$ comes from, but it should be the process's PID or the parent PID. We will investigate. So the parent property of bash. Okay, I should have figured there would be a lot of them. So more things if you want to know. PSOXF makes it look real nice and pretty. Gives it a nice tree format. This is superior to all the other PSs. PSOXF. Great command. So here are all you guys. And I can echo hello. Oh no, someone figured out that they could loop it. No, I don't want to pair it. So PST, yeah. So we can see who's running what PST. I can only see people on my own. But yeah, as you see when I typed echo $$, it was this PID, which is currently me. So thank you for the question. Any other questions or concerns? Besides piping to yeah, let's just for fun. Here's some quick bash scripting. So, oh, I cannot see, so I will do it blind. Okay, so it worked. So, actually, I don't even know if that would work. Linux is really cool, is my point, and I hope this. Oh my god. Okay, I'm just gonna. I'm gonna ignore that. So I hope this kind of inspired you to take some self-exploration and learn more about these commands, because they're all really neat, and Linux is a great place to be. Any other questions or concerns from the audience?